Welcome back, members. So, before we commence next technical session, a small announcement. So we have on 20th and 21st, Abhyudaya CA Students Conference. So 2 days conference. Please encourage your articles to please attend the CA Students Conference. And also, since this is the last month, December, for completing CP requirements for the block of 17 to 19, we have organized various programs like 2 off-day programs relating to how to grow practice and also recent updates under GST, and 5 one-day seminars relating to litigation practice and Mahila conference exclusively for women, and this is the 6th consecutive year we are conducting, and one-day program on insolvency and bankruptcy code, and one-day program on engagement and quality control standards and internal audits. And we have also 2 days conference coming up relating to GST and technology. So I request you people to please block your calendars and visit our Bangalore branch website and also app and register online, so that there will not be any difficulty in registration, because yesterday this program around 250 people are registered and around 100 people were trying to register, 100 people more were trying to register, and there will be more demand for programs in last month. So please do plan accordingly and register at the earliest. So now we have next technical session on value addition and opportunities, consulting, advisory and litigations covered. So for this we have CA Chinmay A M. So I request, I invite you to today's session, sir. Please come forward. I would like to present bouquet on behalf of Bangalore branch. A small introduction about today's speaker. He has completed BCom, Chartered Accountancy and Graduate Company Secretary, CIMA, Certified Forensic Audit and Fraud Prevention Professional from ICI, and also a Registered Valuer from Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. He started his career by doing articleship with Ariaran & Co, and after it he was in association with Pricewaterhouse PwC till January 2014, and currently he is partner in Guru & Jana Chartered Accountants. His professional focus is on tax and regulatory consulting services to companies in relation to M&As, corporate restructuring, inbound and outbound investment advisories, global restructuring, and he also has valuation assistance and investment advisory. And he is very much keen in teaching CA students and CS students, and also presenting on various professional forums, including ICA, CS Institute and various other study circles. With this brief introduction, I hand over the session to you, sir. Welcome.
Everybody, thank you, Padindra. Thank you for the introduction and everything. So it's always an honor and privilege to come and speak in CA Institute, though we would have spoken in many other places, like other maybe chapters, valuation organizations and many things. It's always very good to speak here, because just few years ago we would have been sitting as students here in the same halls for various GMCAs and various other programs. So it feels very special to participate as members and as speakers here. So thank you, Padindra, for the opportunity. And I can understand it's a Saturday and post lunch, post tea, how difficult it is, and I can imagine you are the, maybe Padindra was mentioning, you are the most interesting audience, that's why you are still holding up to your things and pushing your weekend Saturday plans. But I'm sure this session will be very, very interesting, and a lot of takeaways will be there from the session, so I don't think you will see the time until I say that, okay, and this is the last slide, thank you. My voice is little low, I'm very little listening, because last 4-5 days I was not keeping well, but my team has helped a lot. They put in good amount of slides, and this is the way routine things I do every day in the organization, so I think it will be very interesting to speak, and wherever anything you need, please do stop me, because though it is all relating to Companies Act, and from yesterday onwards, I was just seeing the things. Many of my friends have spoken. Pramod is a good friend of mine. Punarvas and many other people had come, and my partner yesterday, Sri Lakshmi, had come and spoke here. I think in all our previous sessions, there were few things which were, for example, incorporation or how to do filings, like that. Dedicated topics were there relating to mostly provisions and practical working. But in this session, it will be slightly different because not too many people practice what I'll be discussing here. But it will be very interesting because that's what is happening in the real world. And also, certainly, there is a great amount of opportunity that some of the things what we discuss here can definitely be adopted in practice. And some of you who are in the thinking process of how to diversify, how to expand, or how to start itself, definitely there could be a lot of cues from this. And do stop me wherever you feel that I need to give more explanation or example or repeat or something like that. So let us just start the session. The topic valuation and opportunities, consulting, advisory, and litigations. Firstly, consulting. Anything what we do in office is in a way consulting itself. However, is it okay? Yeah. So, however, what is not routinely done, for example, audit, definitely audit is not a consulting engagement, it's an assurance. Even tax return filings, it has an element of consulting. Even in audit also, certainly when we go for audit, many things we do advise the clients. Whenever we observe anything which is incorrect on an informal level, okay, this is the mistake, okay, anyway, it's a different thing whether we'll qualify or what to do. But however, we would have interacted with the client as to what is the right way to do. Tax return filings, so many consultants we would have given, what is allowed, what is disallowed, what is the rate of TDS to be done, and everything. So likewise, every engagement will have a bit here and there consulting part of it. But what is consulting practice as such is, there is nothing much apart from advice. Just say one 10-pager or 12-pager note which has our advice itself is the value of the entire engagement. It's not that we would have seen some lots and lots of books, vouchers, or too many interactions or anything. It is just the advice, it's just the words what we say, that itself is the engagement. That is what is consulting. And advisory consulting mostly synonymously we can use, and litigations will cover that also today. So I'll just give you maybe brief as to what we do, what I do in office, and how is my team evolved, so that it will give you an idea as to what exactly we are speaking today. So you'll be knowing about our firm Guru and Jana. I think in 2012 or 13 we didn't have this consulting practice. That's when it started. And I joined in 2014, as Panindra was saying. So when I joined, I was speaking to my founding partner Guru, and I was asking, okay, what do I need to do? All this while I was doing tax and regulatory consulting in the areas of M&A. So here, what do we need to do? What is the thought process and strategy of the firm relating to consulting team? So that time he said few things, but what I could gather is, from whatever I could gather, I named the team as miscellaneous team. Why miscellaneous team is, if some client comes to office and says that I need audit, okay, there is an audit team. I need tax return filing, there is a tax return filing. I need to keep, I want you to keep books of accounts, there is a bookkeeping team. I want you to have secretarial complaints, there is a secretarial complaints. I want indirect taxes, GST, we have GST team. So anything what doesn't fit in this, then maybe our team should do. Whatever is not fitted in any of the other teams, that our team do. So that's why I used to call it as a miscellaneous team. So as I was talking about consulting, literally we used to do anything, maybe back in 2011 when we used to do anything which is not done by a routine practices of the firm, like audit and other things. However, over a period of time, slowly there are few things which got a lot more attention, and those few things mainly because not many firms does it, and or maybe because it needs a slightly different way of working. Not only working by the team, but also the way we present it to client, the way we take that as an engagement itself is a slightly different way than a normal audit or taxation. So those areas of practice became predominant. Now it's no more a miscellaneous team. There are three important things we do in consulting team, apart from few other things. One is valuations, second one is diligence, due diligence for the VC firms when they invest into startups, and then structure advisory, where we advise the companies on structure of the company itself. It could be share capital, it could be an ESOP. Say if a client wants to have ESOP, he's not having it, then we advise them based on as to what is to be taken care from Companies Act perspective, what is there in Companies Act, what they can do, what they cannot do in ESOPs. So likewise many other specific. So these are three important things we do. Apart from this, maybe these three things constitute 90% of the work, and apart from this, small engagements like forensic audit, cyber forensics, and few miscellaneous things anyway we do. So in this session, it would be similar to what we do in day in and day out. We'll be talking about with specific emphasis on Companies Act. So a few areas like valuation and all, I may not touch too much, but still I have a slide for that. But a lot more relating to majorly focused on Companies Act, we'll be looking into it. So first to start with, when we think about Companies Act, what we generally do, for example, incorporation of companies, which everybody I think we would have done it. I have not done it recently, but still I remember that during my articleship, those days I did my articleship in Mysore, so we used to file the forms. It was new also little, online filing, incorporation and everything. So we used to file the forms and everything, and then my principal used to send me to submit the form in ROC, because though it was online, it was actually not online. I mean, it was not completely online. The government made it online, but however, it was online plus offline. File everything, do everything all online, but anyway, you do physical filing also, which anyway was earlier being done. So both were there. So we used to file all the forms and everything, and then I used to enjoy coming because I'm going for an engagement. My principal used to send me in Volvo. So otherwise, I used to travel to Bangalore in Red Dabba. So we used to come to Bangalore, file the forms in ROC, Kormangala, and then go back to Mysore. So incorporation services, everybody we would have done it. ROC filings is another thing we would have done it. Related to Companies Act I'm talking. Of course, audit is, because Companies Act is there, only stat audit is there. Internal audit also, I mean, objective of internal audit is not from Companies Act, but still Companies Act also recommends internal audit. Apart from these things, what else you would be, of course, many things you would be doing, but I've covered only this in slide. Anybody doing anything directly relating to Companies Act apart from these things? Forms?
DPT 3 MSME 1.
Sorry, I'm not able to hear you.
DPT 3 MSME 1.
So ROC filings, so form filings is covered in that. Apart from form filings, I think you would have been doing board resolutions, also resolutions for AGM and this thing, all secretarial compliances you would be doing, most of you would be doing. So let us see what else we can do in Companies Act in the subsequent slides. So, okay, as an overall thing, whatever we discuss now, there is no limit for anybody to do anything. That is what consulting is. Nobody will ask, for doing stat audit, I need to be a CA. And for example, to say earlier in the High Court for mergers and acquisitions, if somebody has to represent in High Court, they need to be lawyers. So like that, every engagement will demand something or the other. But in case of consulting, what is required is the quality of the work and maybe to some extent the brand value. That is the only two required. There is no other prerequisites are there for consulting engagements. So likewise, what we discuss, everything is all about Companies Act. However, sometimes you may feel that okay, this has to be done by Company Secretary, this has to be done by lawyers. So there is no, framework like that. Anybody can do anything. So in that we are discussing only relating to Companies Act today. Firstly, I wanted to talk about shareholders agreement. Especially in Bangalore, being the hub of startups, we will be at least one or two startups we will be having in our portfolio, unless it's a little different kind of a practice. For example, if you are practicing in, say, chickpet, so definitely there won't be any startups, because that's a different kind of practice altogether. So otherwise, most of us in Bangalore, some of us may have too many, some of us may have little less. Some of the other startups will have, because I don't want to talk about, say, shareholders agreement of, say, Reliance or some other company where definitely, I mean, we don't tie towards, I mean, providing services to an MNC, large MNC, and everything. Because that, I mean, the ingredients required also would be completely different, or competencies required also would be different, and also, I mean, there are many other aspects to it. So I am trying to discuss what in the day-to-day practice we'll be doing. A little extension, little deviation here and there, we can go and still do a lot of different things. So the first thing about shareholders agreement, say to a startup, or not even to a startup, to even say, for example, this point is applicable even to a person who is practicing in chickpet. For example, they are doing a family, they are advising a family where their 3 brothers are there. Then if 3 brothers are doing the business and they don't have any understanding in writing, obviously, because whatever his father was doing, whatever his forefathers were doing, so those practices they do, elder brother so and so, younger brother will get so and so, and if younger brother, one of the brothers has two sons, then their share will be so and so. Likewise, all informal verbal understanding will be there. But nowadays we are seeing, as we speak, 3 clients we are advising on how do we formalize the shareholders understanding, owners understanding. We also call it as family succession advisory. So we need to advise them as to why it is very important to write down things in paper and also have an agreement. That is nothing but shareholders agreement. We always keep saying, then many of the clients will ask us, okay, how do we speak about it? Say, for example, one of the brothers has approached me, saying that nowadays little confusions are happening. When we are expanding, we are not sure which brother has to sit in that office, which brother has to do. If procurement somebody is doing, I don't know how to incentivize that person, because there is no profit in procurement. Only when the salesperson is doing, he is collecting the money, so there is more profits. So if say one of the brother has come to me, is asking as to some solution is required, because all of us are doing different roles. How do we share profits? How do we have an understanding? How do we say that, okay, last year this is what we had spoken, and likewise I should share the profits. So there should be something on the basis, some formality should be there, something should be there in writing. So the first question they will ask is, how can I ask my brother, how can I ask my friend that we should have something in writing? Don't we have belief? So my answer is, okay, today if you are not able to speak to your brother or friend or anybody, say after 2 years or 3 years, if you have little of the issue also, little of a doubt or little of a issue also, definitely you would not be in a position to speak. Or imagine a situation where you have difference of opinion itself after 3-4 years, then certainly you would not be in a position to discuss about shareholders agreement or something. So likewise, this is not a routine kind of approaching the engagement. Say in an audit, it's very easy. You have a client, okay, Companies Act requires audit, this is the normal way of doing audit, okay, our fees is so and so, okay, let's start audit, that's all. But these kind of engagement is not like that. We need to really step into their shoes, we need to think from their perspective, okay, why actually it is required. If I used to do, say, some business with my friend or my brother or somebody, or sister, so how I would have thought through, like that we should think and then advise them, okay, this is the way you need to approach, this is the way it is required and everything. So coming back to the shareholders agreement, we can play a lot important role in their ventures in terms of shareholders agreement. Typically also our traditional firms also they were doing a lot of these things. Many CA firms, many CAs I have seen, they will know much better than their clients. The clients themselves they not know, okay, how many bank accounts are there, where all branches, if it's a little larger business, they will not know where all which branch GST, how much they are paying, which branch bank accounts is more and less. So they themselves may not know, but the CA will know very well. And especially when father and next generation is there, definitely the next generation people, what they know, the CA who is handling the account will know much better than the next generation. So that's the reason we'll be the right people to advise the clients in terms of these matters of family arrangement and shareholders and everything. And this is very closely connected with companies. For those of our clients who are companies, So what we can advise, what we can do in shareholders agreements is a shareholders agreement will come with certain amount of routine clauses which has to be there mandatorily, and certain amount of clauses which is depending upon the nature of business, nature of shareholders involved and understanding involved, some other clauses will come. So we can advise them on these of the things. As to before, while you enter the shareholders agreement, what all you should ensure. For example, I was telling you the example of how to share the profit. One brother is handling procurement, one brother is handling manufacture, another brother is handling sales. So how do we share the profit in manufacturing? What kind of profits are there? Only in sales I can see after selling so and so profits are there. So, but however, there are various ways of addressing this issue. Simple thing is transfer pricing, not the income tax transfer pricing, costing transfer pricing. The manufacturing division can have a transfer pricing to the sale division, and they will know what is the profit. So this is just an example. Likewise, we can structure the way they can think of, because after we speak to them, they themselves will realize that okay, there are so many different ways of addressing these issues, but they would not have thought of these at all until that time. So these clauses, what we are discussing, these profit sharing and other things, has to be recorded in the shareholders meeting. And say, for example, other things like say after some time one of the shareholder or one of the partner wants to quit and start on their own. At that time, it's like a blind spot where nobody knows what to do, because all this while operationally is one issue, so and so person was handling few things, and other than operationally, how do we address this issue of one person leaving, or what we need to pay them, what we should not pay them, or nothing at all to be paid. So all those issues can be captured in shareholders agreement today. When everybody are in good terms, we can talk, say after 2 years if you want to leave, or if anybody wants to leave, so and so will be the way in which we calculate goodwill, and a part of the goodwill will be given in such and such manner. This is same for if I leave also it's same, if you leave also it's same, if third person leaves also it is same. So today it is very easy to discuss and agree on, because nobody is thinking of leaving. But tomorrow when one person is leaving, and that person will always try to agree for a clause which is much more beneficial to him rather than the surviving partners. So it is much better and much easier to discuss today than when actually an event happens. So these are the ways and means of advisory we can do in shareholders agreement relating matters. And then a lot of mediation is also possible when we have actually reached a situation where split is happening, one person is leaving. Then there is a large scope for us to represent one of the parties and guide them as to in what way they need to talk, they need to address the situation, then they need to come out of the issues. And of course, drafting shareholders agreement. Again, drafting shareholders agreement, let us not think that it's a lawyer's job. Of course, there are lawyers are experts in this. When we talk to lawyers, many times I also get surprised as to how one person can remember exactly in a 40-page document if one word is changed in say page 3. How that word can, how you can visualize in 20 other places such word is there and you need to change. Of course, now Word document is there, Control F we can do. Apart from this, not about just about word, replacing the words, also which all other clauses which will impact, a lawyer can very, very quickly think and act and make sure the document is good. But however, we are not talking about shareholders agreement of some large companies which will have so much complexities. What shareholders agreement I am talking about for the, say for example, the business I was talking, or in case of startups, or in case of a company which only 2 partners are there, a medium-sized company, there the shareholders agreement need not be such complex. It could be say a 10-page document which will cover as to when the business is going on well, how all will share the profits. When the business is not going well, what all will do. And since certain cases, for example, somebody is ready to acquire, at that time what all terms will have. So such simple things will be there, and which we very well can draft those agreements. So drafting shareholders agreement and related documents could be another very important service which we can offer to our clients. And maintaining shareholders documents, this thing we are seeing these requirements is coming off lately very much in our clientele, whereby the company will have the copies and nobody knows in today's world, say especially in startups, today's 3 founders will be there, and after 4 or 5 years one of the founder himself may not be there. Forget about the team changing, like CFO or the finance head changing, even the founders may themselves change. So in such a scenario, an external party like an advisor or a consultant would be much safer than the internal parties, because from anybody's perspective, from quitting shareholder or continuing shareholder or employees or government, from anybody's perspective, when in the company nobody is sure of continuing, it is always best to leave the responsibilities with consultants. So we have seen where many people leaving the documentation with consultants. So we have a specific service for that. Okay, if you want, we have the locker facilities, we maintain your documentation, and also it's not just, just like a bank locker to save the documents. It is also when you accept the document, many times I've seen recently one of the investors wanted the promoters' share certificates to be escrowed with us. In order to ensure that promoter will not quit, and so many other conditions they would have agreed, for which they want their certificates to be escrowed with us. So when we got the certificate, we said, okay, you want it to be escrowed and everything, but definitely even we have it, there is no use for this, there is no value for this, because it doesn't have a basic thing of stamping itself. So promoter company has given, number is there, everything is there, but it is not stamped. If it is not stamped, it is not valid at all. So there is no use of saving it. Likewise, many advisory also will be there, not just holding the shares, documentation as a locker like a banker. So that is another service which, see, these things if we have in mind, many times we can pitch, and we can, when we are talking to the clients, many times if we don't know that we can do it, we will not even think of telling that, okay, do you want to do this? So if we know it, at least when we face some client, we can, okay, do you have this agreement? They may not come up for say shareholders agreement. At least at that time they will think, okay, let them document and keep it themselves in the way they want. When we pitch for shareholders agreement, if they think that, okay, we will only write down and we will put it in one place in the locker, so tomorrow nobody will doubt as to what was spoken 2 years ago. That itself is good, because of our thought. If they start did something, then definitely the way they see us, they will value us much more, because they will know the utility of what I've done, even though they have not given the engagement. So, okay, so these are the things. Other related laws apart from Companies Act, what will matter for these services is stamp duty laws, and also other things to be considered is, especially for shareholders agreement, once the shareholders agreement is done, all of those clauses should go to articles of association. Otherwise, anyone, can you think of, okay, we'll have the shareholders agreement, but if tomorrow some quarrel happens, then what is the recourse? What is to be done? Okay, it is there in writing, it is agreed. If one person is saying, okay, I agreed that day, today I don't want to honor, then what is the recourse for the company and other shareholders? Is it clear what I'm asking? Of course, the easy answer is to just go to the court, right? Sorry? Yes, sir, please. Yeah, go to the court only. That's the only thing which is there. However, I know what happens if we go to the court. It is as good as not going. We have the greatest, very oldest proverb where if a person goes to court and if he wins, he is the loser. And if he doesn't win, we don't even need to talk about it, because it will take around 20-30 years to go. So even if you win the case, it is of no use of winning after 20 years with losing so much money when actually you don't need it. So we know it will not work. There is little lesser probability of going to the courts. However, still it will definitely work, because at least the mind works. When I have spoken as against I have written, I'm talking about the partner who has written it, he will be more vigilant and aware that he has agreed to that. On top of it, when he has signed it, he will be much more aware. And when he knows that the other person can take it to the court, definitely he will be on his controls. But so those are the advantages anyway you got without going to the court. So other way of ensuring its more utility is, because we know that Indian court systems, what way it is, we know what it is. These all clauses, what is there in the shareholders agreement, if we incorporate it in articles of association, then any failure to that, any party not agreeing to that, it will become a Companies Act matter. It is no more just a civil suit where shareholders agreement is there and 2-3 parties are there. Once it goes to the articles of association, it's a matter of Companies Act and it's not just a civil matter. So what is the advantage of matter of Companies Act? If it becomes a matter of Companies Act and not of civil matter, what is the advantage? Correct, NCLT. NCLT is much better than courts where number of cases are less. Of course, here also in India they hear around 50-60 cases one bench, but still you will get a lot more relief, and most of the Companies Act matters, even in IBC there is a time limit. So NCLT is always better than court. Just by moving the same wording from shareholders agreement to articles of association, we are saving the litigation time from 20 years to say at least 2 years. So that is the advantage of having the terms in articles of association than in shareholders agreement. Then of course, when you are entering a shareholders agreement, stamp duty will apply. Do we need to pay stamp duty for shareholders agreement? What is the incidence of stamp duty? Every law will have incidence, right? For example, income tax law, if a person earns income, they need to pay tax. I mean, subject to chargeability. So in case of say GST, if service is provided or goods is sold, then it is to be paid. Earlier excise law, if manufacture is done, then duty has to be paid. Likewise, what is the charge for stamp duty? Yeah. So that's right. If you are preparing a document, rather if you are signing a document, if any document is executed itself, you need to pay stamp duty, irrespective of profit is earned, some consideration paid, not paid. If anybody is executing a document, then stamp duty will apply. So shareholders agreement, when you are executing, stamp duty will apply. We need to see what is the rate of duty and all. Lot of schedules and all is there in the stamp duty law. We need to see and apply. So stamp duty will apply, and this is very critical, though it's just like a procedural thing. It's not always 200 rupees stamp paper you buy and do it. Especially, for example, if it's a share transfer agreement we are doing, then stamp duty applicability will be based on consideration also. So stamp duty is an important law. And future litigations we discussed, that is also to be considered when we enter into it. So second one is ESOP structuring. When we started the session, I was telling about ESOP structuring. So it's the same thing which is there here also. So we can advise the client as to how do you even form the ESOP. Do you need to have a ESOP trust, or trust should not be there, just a notional ESOP pool should be there, what are clauses should be there, and what are the provisions of Companies Act relating to ESOP. Minimum 1 year vesting period should be there as per Companies Act, and if we are allotting more than 1% worth of ESOPs, then a special resolution to be passed, some form filing should be done. So all of those advisory we can do relating to ESOPs when the company wants to have ESOP. And apart from the advisory, we can do the ESOP scheme drafting, grant letters and other drafting of documents we can do. Then valuation relating to ESOPs. So Companies Act doesn't mandate any valuation, but when the company wants to give ESOPs, they may want to do the valuation because they should know how much ESOPs they are giving, which means how much percentage they are diluting, their own ownership they are reducing. And also at the same time, employee also should know. If for example, if a company says I am giving 100 options, they will not simply become happy. They will become happy only if they know that how much is that 100 rupees, 100 options worth. So for knowing how much 100 options worth, firstly we need to know the value of the company. If I know the value of the company, then okay, I know 100 options I am getting. 100 options out of say 10,000 shares are there in the company, that means 1% of the company I am getting. If the company is valued 10 crores, then I am getting 110 lakhs. So then only they will know. So for all these, primary requirement is valuation of the company. So that way we can help them in valuing the company and valuing the options itself. And of course drafting minutes, board resolutions and everything relating to ESOPs also we can help, which we anyway do normally also. Other laws also to be considered when we think of ESOPs, when we advise on ESOPs is income tax laws should be considered, because once you give ESOPs, when they exercise the options, tax will be there in the hands of employees. And if an employee is foreigner, then we need to consider FEMA also. Then accounting implications, how ESOPs are accounted in the books of accounts. It's also important because it will go as a hit in the P&L account. When we issue ESOPs over a period of vesting with respect to the respective financial years, it will go as a hit in P&L account as an expense. So accounting implications we can advise on. Then other restructuring, restructuring of share capital. Generally, there are so many ways of restructuring, but share capital itself, there are so many things which we need to see, and planning opportunities are there. First thing is type of instrument. What kind of instrument to be issued? When we take capital, what kind of instrument to be issued? We have equity, convertible preference shares, redeemable preference shares, debentures, convertible, non-convertible, optionally convertible. So depending upon the scenario, depending upon the requirement and needs of the investor and needs of the company, we need to see what kind of instrument to be issued. We can advise them on firstly, what is the advantage, disadvantages of this instrument? Secondly, what is the tax impact if you issue so and so instrument? And thirdly, say stamp duty implications and various other things relating to these instruments, we can advise. And some other options is shareholding with differential voting rights and same instruments but with different preference. So especially in a startup environment, there will be something called say liquidity preference. You've heard about liquidity preference? So when a company is closing down, then there is something called liquidity preference, where the company is closing down, the investor will say, okay, I am investing say 10 crores today, which is worth of say 10% if you are 100 crore worth company. Say tomorrow if your company will become 1000 crore and I can sell it at 100 crore, my 10 crore if I can sell it at 100 crore, if your company becomes 1000 crore, then that is good enough. But if that is not happening, say you are not able to continue, my 10 crores also if you have already spent 5 crores, and then you feel that you are not able to do it in a profitable way, then I want to ensure that whatever money is left out in the company, of which until you make 10 crores, first you should pay my money back. Only if something balance is there, then everybody will get. Even I will get, you will get, every other shareholder will get. Say if the company has say one investor, same example, investor is invested, given 10 crores and invested. After 2 years, they are closing down the company, and company had 20 crores in the bank. After realizing all assets, liabilities, everything. Then out of the 20 crore, first, irrespective of whatever Companies Act prescribed chronology is there and everything, first, of course, after paying to labor law, labor related compliances, once it is done, in that 20 crore, first 10 crores will go to this investor, and in the balance 10 crores, again the investor will participate like the promoter, like any other shareholders. So that is called liquidity preference. So the same equity share with liquidity preference will have a different value and different rights without liquidity preference, because as it was evident in the example itself, though it is equity share, he will get much more than other equity shareholders. And types of transactions, these are the instruments, but what kind of transaction can be possible? One is when we are taking the money, allotment of share, it could be rights issue or preferential allotment, or it can be sale, which is secondary transaction, generally is referred to as secondary, means it is sale. Primary means that is the initial allotment of shares, that is called primary transaction. Secondary transaction means once shares are allotted, if you transfer it, that is secondary. Then buyback, capital reduction could be there. So on all of these, we can advise as to what is most advantageous, what is the implications under Companies Act, income tax, FEMA and everything. And then filing of forms with ROC and NCLT, of course. Say capital reduction is there, we need to file with NCLT. Then preparation of minutes, notes and everything, we can always do it. And representation in the NCLT. As I told, in capital reduction and other requirements, we can represent before NCLT and then do things. Similar to what we discussed in shareholder restructuring, other restructurings, other restructurings could be say a merger, demerger, slump sale. I'm not going to each and every line in this presentation because almost similar implications as of last slide. So merger, demerger or slump sale, if anything is there, in those also we can advise in relation to all these laws, income tax, indirect taxes, stamp duty, FEMA and labor laws, and also we can do the filings represent before NCLT. Those things are possible. And apart from this, in case of merger, demerger, scheme of arrangement to be prepared and everything, again, so many CAs do the scheme preparation, it's not that only lawyers are doing it. And then representation we discussed with NCLT. Notices and minutes, obviously, the same as in other services. Then in other litigations, operation and mismanagement winding up. So this is another area where initially we were talking about shareholders agreement and everything, right? If the shareholders agreement and everything is not done very clearly, neatly, then lot probabilities will be there. Later we'll land up in litigation or in O&M cases or in winding up. I'm assuming we all know what is operation and mismanagement. If some small shareholder, large shareholder is there, they will have issues like the large shareholder is causing problem to the small shareholder and things like that. So in those cases we can, two, three things possible. One is arbitration, is just nothing but negotiation. Out of the court, people bringing the parties together and having a third party trying to negotiate and trying to make both the parties coming to the same terms. And or out of court settlement or IBC or anything is possible. In all of those areas we can advise them. and then execute the whatever option is selected, and then written due diligence forensic audits. In these kind of operational mismanagement cases, say one of the party who can appoint us to do the diligence for the other party on the company itself. For example, there is a 10% shareholder who does not even know what is happening, because just in AGM what comes is just one piece of document where behind the balance sheet and financial statement, audit and report, so many things can be managed. So they can appoint us for doing the diligence, where we go through threadbare and everything, books of accounts, returns, everything we go through in detail and clearly say, though your financial statement says so and so, what are the flaws or what are the things to be considered by you before you think that your running statement has so much value. So those things are possible in O&M related cases. Then insolvency, I mean, it's the law which has come in the last 2-3 years. Actually, it's a very, very good law, which was the most needed in an economy like India, because there is a lot of companies which are just going on, dragging on, just because there is no easy way to wind it up or easy way of resolution. For example, for a bank, if they are not getting their loan back, the way, even though even now there are so many companies in my clients only, they have properties worth say 400 crores, 500 crores, land is there, building is there and everything is there, and there is a loan, and the bank has given say 100 crore loan, but the property is 400 crores worth. Then it seems like very easy for the bank to, I mean, what is the challenge in that 400 crores worth property? Somebody can just sell it and repay the bank's loan. If say for example interest another 100 crores is there, just repay it and balance promoters can take, right? But actually practically it is not that simple. Because the way the laws are there, the way laws are structured, once bank has, I mean, there's a completely different procedure and methodology of auctioning it or handing over it to some other second level banks, or one, if it is classified as NPA, you cannot do many things. So likewise, it is very, very difficult. Even the simplest cases like this, where the property can easily fetch money which is due for the banker, itself is very difficult. And forget about the cases where the assets in the company is not sufficient to repay, and many other dues like employee dues and income tax department dues are there. Nobody will agree to do this very neat kind of very clean way of doing it, because who will do it? There is no confidence on promoter, because if promoter sells it, he may take the money. There is no confidence on bank. Why will income tax department believe bank? Income tax department will say that I am not confident on you. First, my tax should come to me. Employee union will say that employees has the preference of, in order of liquidation, first we should get money. We don't believe anybody. So like this, there is no single person who can represent and do things right. So IBC, in that way, it's a relief, because in IBC, if anybody initiates the IBC process, there is a third party IP being appointed, and he represents for everybody and resolves the matter. Of course, whatever was expected when it came, that much result it is not giving. But still, so many cases have been settled in IBC which otherwise would not have been settled. So that way it is a good, I mean, there is an exam we need to pass and other things for that. But if anybody looking at a slightly different practice or additional practice than what we are doing right now, it's one of the very, very interesting opportunity which is there now. You can take up the IBC exam, and there are not as many practicing chartered accountants as IBC professionals. There, of course, a very small bucket of, I mean, though that itself is thousands in number, still a small portion of number of people who are practicing in IBC. So it's a very good chance to take up. Of course, I think it requires 10-year minimum experience. If anybody is less than 10 years, it's not possible. Those who have more than 10 years practice experience, especially, it's very good way of exploring the practice. This is all related to IBC itself, all points similar to the earlier slides. So I was talking about valuation. Even valuation has taken a lot different shape these days. Firstly, with the valuation body being created by IBDI, and then CA Institute has also done registered valuer organization and everything. So in which way now government is also looking at a new thing. IBDI itself doing valuation, registered valuer organization itself was new, which just happened 2 years ago. Now already government is thinking that is not very effectively functioning. So I think in various ministries they are doing a lot of research as to how valuation practice has to be done in India. Nevertheless, valuation itself is also a good practice. This slide gives the sorry. This slide gives some of the valuation opportunities on the company side. For example, section 62, when preferential allotment happens, valuation is required. ESOPs we already discussed. When convertible instruments are given, valuation is required. And when merger and demerger happens, it is required. Insolvency proceedings is required. Apart from company side, even Ind AS requires valuation. Purchase price allocation for income tax requires valuation. FEMA, slump sale, capital reduction, buyback, all of these requires valuation. So valuation as such is a very good, interesting area of practice. So this slide I have written only to show how normal things will be doing, how we can do maybe little more in depth of it and try to do different things. For example, board meetings and shareholders meeting, I am sure every one of us will be doing. So little more advisory we keep on giving to the clients. When we try to pass a resolution, we can think, okay, if that resolution is, for example, apart from the routine matters, if it is for say accepting loan. So for taking loan, if the resolution is there, we can advise them on, okay, if they are taking the loan from individuals, then section 73 will come, which is public deposit. If they are taking loan from directors also, 73 will come. If they are giving loan to somebody else or making some investment, section 185 will come, 186, section 180 will come relating to shareholders approval and board approval for giving loans and making investment. So though we will be just passing the resolutions for the clients, we can, what is there in the resolution, we can advise more about them relating to what Companies Act has the implications on. Yeah, then other than that, though normally, for example, if we are passing a board resolution and it's almost the end of the year, if that was just a second board meeting, then we can advise them that minimum 4 meetings you should have in a financial year. And we in fact, we can proactively do this for them, like we can have a calendar for our clients. If we know that we are doing some work for the client, we can even send the reminders to the client saying that, okay, this is the quarter which is ending, you need to have board meeting, last meeting you had and so on, so date, 180 days gap is increasing, so we should have another meeting. So likewise, many proactively we can provide, it's the same work of board meeting, board resolutions, but we can do it in a lot different way. So that will definitely increase the confidence of the client on us, because when they know that before we approach, they are coming back and doing it, definitely the way they look at us and the more value what they give us will be a lot higher than normal. All other things are, routine agenda, notices and everything. So this slide I just is there only to show the difference of normal work itself, how we can do a little differently, so that we can, that's a kind of brand building. Many other sayers they would have seen, but if we go with to them with an additional thing where proactively we saying things and advising them more than just passing a resolution and all, that's a way of brand building we are doing with the clients. So with all these things, many areas we saw. This slide is to just to discuss as to, okay, IBC is there, okay, so we spoke about startups, we spoke about so many things, shareholders agreement, every day it may not come. So if somebody is thinking seriously, either starting a profession or adding on other additional services than regularly what they have not done, what is the way we can think? Where do we, how will we be able to think? See, one is on the general, I have few things on this, few pointers. But before that, first when we think of providing some services, we need to think in general, what is the need, supply and demand relationship. What kind of companies are there, what is the need is there for the companies or individuals or whatever, and what kind of service providers are there, and what is the capability of the existing service providers, and what they do generally they do, and what we can do little differently or more, so that we can meet the need of the customers at a maybe little less competition, so that we can provide quality service or something like that. For example, when 15 CACB service, I very clearly remember 10-15 years ago, we used to think that, okay, we need to charge at least 1,000 rupees per certificate, even if it is simple, because we need to see the section, what is the impact of it, rates are right or not, and everything. But over a period, I realize now there are many people who are providing 15 CACB certificates even for 100 rupees, 50 rupees and all. Of course, for one certificate they not charge 50 rupees. in a year consolidated so many certificates which will result in just 50 rupees, 75 rupees, 100 rupees also. So we need to see where the market is there, where the service provider is there, what is the possibility for us before we venture into. So in this, my analysis is, or at least what I see in the last 10 years, 12 years is, 12, 13 years, there are n number of service providers who are addressing the very small and individual HUF kind of a companies, that market requirement. There are three broad categories: very small companies, medium-sized companies, and large corporations. So very small, there are n number of people who are doing it, and very large companies, anyway whatever we do, they would have a global mandates or anything to appoint big fours or big eights or something. So there is no need, there is no point in eyeing them. In the mid segment, actually, though there are multiple service providers are there who provide a lot of service in the SME sector, but there are very rarely, there are not too many consultants are there, practicing CAs are there, who provides quality service in a dependable manner, where you approach the clients with same professionalism what a large firm does, in the same professionalism, giving them the timelines and honoring to the timelines, not providing the service just to get the fees or just to expand the fees. So in this way, quality service, standard way of service providing is still there are many requirements is there compared to the number of companies are there. For example, the startups. 10 years ago, there were few startups. Today, there are more than 10,000 startups in Bangalore itself. So there are that many number of more CA firms are not there compared to 10 years ago. It's altogether 10,000 new set of requirement, right? 10 years back it was not there. But there is not even say 1,000 more people who are serving these 10,000 startups. It is all these are served by the existing practitioners. So definitely there is a large scope and requirement in this space where a person who can provide a service in an organized way and in a dependable way to the medium segment clients. So in this broader picture of medium segment clients, I have few options. One is startup advisory. So one thing we need to be very clear when we advising startups is initial 2-3 years, I don't know whether I'll get sufficient amount of fees or not. It is a lot of learning also which will go, because the amount of the pace in which it will work, the expectation from the startup companies will be very high, and it will be a learning for us also because many things we may also not know. When we start advising, we'll know. So startup advisory is something definitely we can look into it, where if we make the investment of 2-3 years in which we provide services and do it, and after that we create a slight mark and the word of mouth spreading across. If one person, one company likes, in 1 year if you serve to one company, definitely in the second year you would have told it to at least 10 people. So that way the word of mouth spread is also very good. So this is one very interesting space in which we can consider of spending more time in service. NCLT practice, earlier only lawyers could do when it was before NCLT with High Court, now all professionals can do. It's a very good practice where we can represent, we can argue, we can represent our clients like any other lawyers. Legal practice, when I say legal practice, again many legal activities we can do, for it being drafting of shareholders agreement, drafting of simple contracts, employment agreements. So likewise various things we can definitely do. Or say for example prevention of sexual harassment committees constitution, what those laws say, what is required. 99% of the companies, especially in SME side where POSH is applicable, but they are not having it. So definitely there is a clear opportunity that we can tell the client that this is applicable to you, but you have not followed it. If something goes wrong tomorrow, anybody can sue you. Being the founder, they can sue you whether you have done the mistake or not. It's a criminal offence if you have not constituted the committee as per the act is required. So likewise many other things legal based, but we can very well do those services. Valuation, we just spoke about it. That's also a very interesting good space which we can think of. IBC also we just spoke. ROC practice, is it why we thought there is nothing called ROC practice, but I was just thinking, because is it such a difficult thing to expect what may happen after a file? Okay, some things which are very clear, definitely the form will go and it's a straight through process, it will get approved. But otherwise there are various things, only if a person is dedicated to practicing, they will know as to how do we follow up getting the approvals, and everything, but this has a little negative color to this practice also with the bribe and all. Many people know how to get the forms fast by having a dinner with registrar or RD, but positively also there is a way in which we can think of. Forensic audit, there is a course in institute only for about forensic audit, and outside institute also there are few courses are there. This is also very, very interesting area of practice which one can look at it. Then text-based services, there is a real big opportunity here. Even right now only there is large opportunity. In next 3 to 5 years, definitely huge amount of opportunity will be there in this space. Where, because now technology is available at a very, very easy cost and easy manner also. There are many people, some of my friends also who are doing practices in tech-based thing, where they, for example, I heard about this, I have written bots, that's a short form of robot. So there are some of my friends doing the service of this bot, providing the bots. That is nothing very fancy. When we look at it, it looks like, okay, how can we do robots? But what is it is, there is a small program we develop, and it will go and sit in Tally, so that some things are automatized. What Tally cannot do, if you have this additional program, then it will automatically happen. For example, maybe invoice generation, you need to go to 3-4 screens, and you have some, your name and everything should be there. Maybe in one, if you have this additional program, in one screen it can happen. Or from Excel to Tally, there is a limited way in which it can happen. But if you have your additional software program, then it can happen much more quickly and everything. So these are the things. See, anyway, because of digitalization, our services will be compromised to an extent. But why not we? Because nowadays it's very simple to become a techie, because 90% of the things are available in open source. What people learn in college and come out, and engineering, say for example software engineer, what he learns in college, it's actually useless today, because whatever you would have learned, it is already available in open source as a free download of the software. So in effect, what they learn after coming out of the college is only, that's why even the job market also, now the salaries have drastically reduced for an engineer compared to earlier, because everything is anyway available. So we don't need to become a software person to do the software, everything is available. We can just relate to accounting, we can think little more, and little efforts we can put, and lot more service offering we can do. Then cyber forensics is another thing which is a very, very promising area, where that's hardcore technology. We need to know a lot more in forensics. So maybe a year, 6 months year courses are there. Many people are offering their courses. That is also another thing which is very, very, especially in Bangalore, it could be very much in demand, because a lot of startups, every startup is based on technology. So audits, cyber audits is very much in need. A lot of requirement is there in this. And even today we are using cyber forensics from Bombay for many of our clients. There are few in Bangalore, but not as many as much is required. So many times we are relying on people in Bombay to provide these services. So these are the few things which I had for today. Anything you want me to touch upon? Any doubts you have? No doubts will be there because it's the last session, but still I'm asking. Okay, it was very pleasure talking to you all on these topics. I left my email ID and mobile number. If anything is there, you can reach out. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chinmay, for sharing your valuable insights on various opportunities available for members. So, like miscellaneous opportunities. So, on behalf of Bangalore branch, I would like to present the memento to the speaker. Thank you all for your patience listening.